Kobe Altman, at his end of the season press conference, said he's seen no reason to break up the core four. I personally think that's a smokescreen. I mean, if you're going to trade one of those guys, you're not going to come out and say it, obviously. Brian Windhurst continually insists that Mitchell and Garland will not be on the same team together, that if Mitchell leaves, Garland will be kept. If Mitchell resigns, Garland will be traded. So I know he has a lot of sources. He's one to watch for those rumors, so I tend to believe him. Mm-hmm. There's been a lot of smoke with Darius Garland to the Pelicans for Brandon Ingram. Gives you a wing that you sought. There were rumors that Altman tried to get Ingram last season. I know they've been interested in him for a couple years. There's also several teams interested in Jarrett Allen. And Cavs have been linked to some other guys, along with Ingram, Devin Vassell, who the Spurs just came out and said is pretty much untouchable, along with Wemby. Keldon Johnson, also from the Spurs, Paul George from the Clippers, and Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn, who I think they'd rather build around than get rid of. So I don't see that happening. That's kind of a dream scenario. But what are your guys' thoughts on the rumors, and can they continue to play with two small guards and two bigs who can't shoot? And is Mobley your future center? James, you want to start it off?
I think, obviously we're starting in the backcourt. From the eye test from Garland during the playoffs, to me, all I kept thinking was he's too small. And the way he would go to the basket, sometimes he reminded me of Coro, where he was kind of going at it 100 miles an hour, and then the ball just goes all over the place, unfortunately. I like Darius Garland. I can understand having some issues driving to the basket, especially in the playoffs, since his face has been rearranged. How many times? The poor guy has got beat to hell. But still, size-wise, I look back at, Dame Lillard and CJ in Portland, and sure, that was great for some regular season stats and some regular season wins, but where did that go in the playoffs? If it wasn't Dame having a shot, I think it was to beat Houston that year I think it was the first round of the playoffs, that team just didn't have enough. And I just don't think that backcourt is going to last, and Mitchell's the guy you're going to build around, especially if he's going to sign. I agree with you on the smoke screen. I really believe in Windy, man. I trust Windy with whatever he says and whatever he's connected to, that this backcourt will not see each other next year.
All right, Clarence, I've seen you kind of shaking your head when I mentioned Brandon Ingram. What are your thoughts? Did we lose him?
Clarence, Brandon Ingram.
All right, Paul.
His audio might be delayed.
Yeah. Paul, what are your thoughts?
And he's gone. I think
he's in hyperspace.
I think all of that sounded like we were trying to track somebody down at Target.
When he comes back in, we should all be like, talk Star Wars or something and be like, what the hell?
I don't know that I want to see the whole four go, but I do think, look, I've been a big fan of Jarrett Allen, and he looked really just out of place that entire playoff. He just didn't look like the guy that could be that big that we need. And that's disappointing because I really like Jarrett Allen. I like a big man in the paint that's not afraid to get in there and scrap. I mean, one of my favorite players of all time is Shaquille O'Neal. Can't shoot a basket to save himself, but if you need him to get a rebound, he's the guy you want out there. And if you want somebody to get physical, he's the guy you want out there. That said, I think the most likely of the four to go is probably going to be Jarrett Allen.
Clarence, you back now?
I'm here.
All right. We went to you, but you were froze there. So I seen you were kind of shaking your head when I mentioned Brandon Ingram. So what are your thoughts on the offseason and player movement?
I've been screaming for the Cavs. Let's just be honest. The Cavs haven't had a legit three-man outside LeBron James, I'm not sure in my lifetime. I feel like Nance was probably more of a 4. Harper was more of a 2, and then he basically moved to a 1 with the Lakers. So, like, I can't think of a 3-man that the Cavs have had. I mean, besides, my guy like Alonzo G or somebody like that. But but they haven't had a 3-man.
No.
You like that? You like that? I bring out old
No.
Alonzo.
His name popped in my head.
I was thinking Chris Mills and Mike Sanders.
Mike Sanders. He was with the
Danny Ferry.
No, don't get me started. But they haven't had a legit 3-man and since LeBron basically. And I feel like with Ingram, he fills some of the boxes. He's tall. He can shoot. He's not a volume scorer or anything like that. But is he just a taller Darius Garland? So are we getting somebody who, can't play defense, doesn't really finish at the rim? I don't know if he is the answer. We do need the size. We do need the size for sure. I'm just not sure if Ingram's the guy. I do feel like, as James said, Garland proved in the playoffs, like he can't finish at the basket, man. Like it was just sickening watching him get all the way in there and throw up some trash that wasn't even close to the rim or turn the ball over. So I feel like, in my eyes, I think Garland and probably Allen are probably gone, quite honestly. If they can find the right deals to retool, I think those are going to be the two players that are gone. I'd like to keep Allen. Don't get me wrong. I like him. I like him a lot, but
because they need a point guard to get Mobley more touches. You can see what he can do. I know he wasn't playing against great competition, even with Boston, some of the guys he was going against, but you can see they just need to get him more touches, more shot attempts. I can't tell you how many times I'd look at a box score all during regular season. I'm like, Evan Mobley shot 7 times. What is that?
Yep.
How's that guy going to develop? And he needs more shots. And I don't mean threes.
Well, I kind of thought just from the beginning of the whole, like, we got a star. We got Mitchell. When you have a chance to do that, you have to do it. You absolutely have to do it. But I thought as soon as he came in, I was like, is this going to stunt the growth of Mobley and DG? And to a point, it definitely affected, the touches that Mobley got. So they've got to figure out some way to incorporate him in the offense more. I agree 100%, James.
The one thing I wanted to add on that, Kevin, if you don't mind, is that if you look at Boston being in the finals starting up tomorrow night, but basically both Tatum and Brown are threes that can handle the ball. So our ball handlers that can create their own shot are small. Theirs are huge compared to our backcourt. And yes, Donovan, with that knee concerns me, but he's still our best chip. As far as if you're looking at trying to rebuild a big three, and none of them, our championship big three of LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin, Mitchell could be a 2, but he's not LeBron, which I don't think I don't know that we're going to get that one. That one could be, look at the Bulls. They're still trying to find somebody to replace Jordan. And it may never come again in our lifetime. So to me, you got to build the best roster you possibly can of probably solid 2s. And Mobley can get there with that development. I think Jarrett's maxed out what he can do, and he's had a great season. I don't like what happened to him in the playoffs, but I think Garland's kind of there too. If you remember, both those guys, both Garland and Allen, made the All-Star game in Cleveland because of injuries. And I was happy to see him there as a basketball fan, as a Cleveland fan. But I think we know that ultimately they haven't seen an All-Star roster and been on an all-star roster since then. So I just don't see how they can be next level in the playoffs.
Well, and the way the NBA now,
said really quickly.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just to piggyback off what James said really quickly, he just mentioned the 2 things, Tatum and Brown. Who the hell the Cavs got to guard them? And I'll leave it at that.
Well, that's the way the NBA now. The super team, the 3 big 3s are out the window. You look at the 2 teams in the finals. You got Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown with Boston. Dallas, you got Luka and Kyrie. Yeah. So that's along my thinking as well. You move on from Garland, you move on from Allen, and you bring in pieces that fit better to build around Mobley and Mitchell to make them more successful.
Eminem.
Because you look at the streak they went on when they went 18-2. They had Mitchell playing the point, and they had one big, which was Allen at the time. And look how well they played. And I can't remember what the exact stat was, but offensive efficiency was much higher with Mitchell and Mobley on the floor together than it was with the core four on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at it in a lot of numbers that back that up as well. So it's going to be an interesting offseason, exciting and interesting. And we have the 20th pick, which who knows what we'll get there, but we'll talk about that as we get closer to the draft.
We got
Mess around,
20?
draft Bronny.
Oh, man.
Mess around and draft Bronny or something.
Who the hell knows at this point?
God, let's not put that into the ether.